Hey everybody, and welcome to another episode of NF Twins. In this episode, we're going to talk about the home healthcare crisis in Germany with our amazing guest, Isabell Halletz. She's the CEO of the German Employers Association of Care Providers, and she's going to share all her insights with you guys. So guys, stay tuned. All right, Isabell, thank you for coming on the podcast. So today we want to talk about, of course, the healthcare sector, especially the home care sector in Germany, because I think it's a very interesting market. And you as an expert, I think it would be amazing if Isabell could give us a little bit intro into the healthcare sector, specifically what her focus is at her work at the Arbeitgeberverband für Pflege. And then we can take it from there. I think that would be amazing.
Sure,
Isabell,
sounds good.
all yours.
Thank you so much for inviting me to the podcast. It was a surprise, but I'm happy to talk about the German sector, especially the healthcare sector and the long-term care sector, because it's a growing sector. It's a fast-growing sector, and it's one of the largest employment sectors in Germany. So I'm basically an economist, so I'm not a nurse. But I'm working for an association which is covering the needs and support for private healthcare providers, especially in long-term care. And we are representing nearly 90,000 employees in the long-term healthcare sector, and around 1,000 companies. They have a quite large revenue, I would say. So there's a shared revenue of 2 billion euros that our members are earning or making per year. So, together with the members, we're trying to build a strong and sustainable elderly care sector in Germany, and which is not very easy because there are many regulations and also a high bureaucracy. One of the biggest challenges is basically how we fill like vacant positions for nurses. And because there's such a high demand of, let's say, caregiver jobs, we're trying to support and actually also supporting our members in the recruitment process. And we're also part of the German Minimum Wage Commission. That means,
what does that mean?
That means we're campaigning for a minimum wage, which is very special because it's only for the long-term care sector in Germany. Okay. And that means we have a minimum wage for qualified and non-qualified nurses and caregivers in Germany, which is currently, like for qualified nurses, is currently nearly 20 euros. And for the unqualified, it's 14 euros.
What's long-term care? As well as the other question is, you said that over 1,000 companies are part of it. Is it only home care providers, home care services, or is it also like elderly care facilities?
Also, so it's not only like long-term care means care homes and like institutional care. And also care at home services. So that means we have a broad sector in Germany providing care services. There are stationary homes, for example, but also caregiving services for people who are living at home. And the biggest part is the caregiving service for people living at home, basically, which is like we have 5.7 people in need of care.
Yeah, a million,
and by
it's
that,
crazy.
Nearly 1 million is taken care of in stationary homes, I would say.
Really?
Wow. And more than 3 million are being taken care of by professional services, but also like many families are taking care of their parents, for example. But also like we also have communal structures like something like friend caregivers, where people who don't have siblings or other family members who can take care of, there are special commune services for them.
That is super cool.
They are they're not non-cared of.
For the audience, so because you mentioned the 5.7 million people that are need in home care right now, that's a statistic from December 2024. And just for the people to know, in 2020, it was only 5 million. So in the last 4 years, increased by 700,000 people. So that people, the audience will know like how fast this is actually growing. This is like for me very fascinating. When I saw the stats, I'm like, holy cow, that's a lot. Well, also for those people who don't know Germany, it's almost 7% of the population is in need.
It is. It's crazy. I mean, we have basically 15,000 or around 15,000 stationary homes for
Yeah.
people who are in need of care, but nearly 17,000 care services who are taking care of people living at home. And yeah, of course, many people want to stay at home as long as they can and
I don't
don't
blame
want to
them.
leave like their house that they know or
Their
the
friends.
surrounding. Yeah, the
Yeah.
friends as well. Yeah. And that's why many people are taken care of at home. But sometimes, I mean, if the care or the need of care is getting bigger and yeah, people are more sick or also get dementia, it's very hard for family members doing those services and taking care of the people. So that's why the need of, let's say, stationary homes are growing as well.
How do these people take? I mean, you mentioned dementia, and how are these
Right.
taken care of? And because this, I mean, is a big spectrum of people who need care, right? So, what is
Right.
the extreme cases from the most need you can get to the lightest one, and how they're currently covered in Germany?
Right. So there are like, I would say 5 stages
Yeah.
that are somehow statutory regulated. So like the lightest version is that you're still able to like do everything like your daily household, go and buy food and groceries, do your groceries, and also handle day-to-day business, I would say.
Yeah.
And sometimes they have just light need of support, for example, organizing or help of cooking, organizing household, etc., just because they're not strong enough to do so. But also if you have a light version of dementia,
Yeah.
you might also get the first and very low need of support. But then there are also like services that are regulated with those different states of need of care, and the highest is the number 5, where basically people are not able usually to move or lay in bed because they have a very hard or a very a multi-morbid illness, and that's why usually people need the support of a stationary home and for example a 24-hour service for care. Sometimes they also need have a respiratory illness where they need constant support, and that's where it differs. But the payment is done partly by the people because the long-term care insurance only covers part of the costs, and the costs
Always, or
are
just in
quite
specific
high.
cases?
Always. So it's regulated that you're always being covered by the statutory long-term care insurance, partly, which is also always a fixed amount connected to your level of the caretaking level. And the lowest is for level 1 is 125 euros a month.
Yeah.
And up to the highest is 3,000 euros. But
And
it's not covering all costs of the care services. So usually you have to pay extra from your own financial background. So you have to pay extra. It differs between, like in a stationary home, the average extra costs for people are 2,800 euros right now per month. Extra, yeah.
And how do people afford that? Because rent, I don't know, if you're retired, your pension is not that high.
Yeah, it's not that high, and sometimes you can ask for help from the states, where you have to apply for support, financial support. So it's some kind of social welfare that you can apply for, but that takes quite long to be decided. So we have like some cases where you're waiting 12 months or more for payment from a state. Yeah, sometimes people are dying in between, and then the costs are still open, and companies are giving care, but they cannot get reimbursed because the people
12 months.
Yeah, or sometimes even longer. And that's really a problem, I would say, for the companies who are offering care services. either care services at home, but also stationary services like long-term care services at stationary level, because the companies, they cannot get reimbursed because the people, they don't have that money. And if they're not getting it from the commune, if they're not getting financial support, then you're basically losing money as a company because you cannot ask family members, for example.
I have a question there, for example, because I think this is one of the biggest problems probably is that for example, the insurance takes a super long time to pay back or pay the providers, service providers, creating cash flow problems for these companies. Have you seen over the last year that this is getting better or worse? Like, for example, have these payback periods or like the reimbursement periods actually reduced or increased? And what are the next steps to potentially reduce it even more? Because like, as we can see, like 12 months is a long time for certain.
It's definitely a long time, and it's definitely getting worse. So we're monitoring that since 2023, past 1.5 years. So we started in September 2023 to monitor the situation of the companies, and it's getting worse. I mean, we've lost nearly 1,100 companies. They've just closed. Yeah. And there are like many companies were in insolvency because you cannot, or you're offering services where you're not getting paid for, and it can add up to a very high amount. So we have members who have an outstanding amount or an amount they're waiting for getting paid for, which is more than 2 million euros.
What?
And this is quite, one extreme example is that there's one company who's waiting for 16 million euros getting reimbursed for care services.
By the government.
By the government. And if you're a small company, you will be dead or you will be closed
16 million
for a long
is a
time.
crazy amount of time. But what is there any mechanism to make sure that the government, government will pay up, but like to increase this? Because like, if you don't pay taxes on time, they will keep knocking on your door and be like, hey guys, are you sure this is like...
No, this is jail.
Exactly. It can take some time. Like, is there no like way to make sure that the government pays faster, or is this right now a hot topic where like people are really fighting for? And what are potential solutions, of course?
Right, it's a topic definitely that we are fighting for because it threatens our member organizations, and there are basically no mechanisms just to sue them and go to court, but that takes long as well. So you have a waiting time for at least 2 years.
Really?
For court, and that's a very long time. I mean, if you're smaller or like a medium company, it's quite difficult because then you probably don't even have that long time in order to sue the government. And because you depend on payments from government, you don't really want to sue them, but sometimes you have to. And this is what we are fighting for, to get some regulations that you're not only regulated as a company, but also have duties as the government. Because if the companies are offering services, then you need to have a guarantee somehow to get paid for those services. And
in a time frame,
especially in time, right?
Exactly. It's like the thing
what is it normally? 60 days, or what's
there's no time frame yet. So
wow.
So we're fighting for a time frame of 6 weeks.
Okay, that's good. Better. That's good. My question is also there because if the government takes so much time to pay back, do home care providers have a similar option as normal doctors who say like, I only want private patients because they pay more instead of public ones? So there are also home care providers who can say, hey, I'd rather have only with private insurances patients because they pay up faster. Is that a thing, or is that only for doctors?
I mean, it happens that there's a selective process of care providers because of those long payment periods, but 88% of the people are publicly insured.
88, holy.
Yeah. so they have a public insurance, a public long-term care insurance. So we only have 12% that are privately insured, and most of them are not in like long-term care services. They have employed a single nurse, for example, in their own home. in order to get those care services. So only a few of them, like a low percentage rate, have contracts with services like our companies are offering.
You mentioned before that you guys are fighting for the rights for, also you're fighting against the long-term payment stuff. Besides the first of all, are you really suing the government, or is there a specific branch you have to sue? And then second of all, what else are you doing to ensure this? Like, are you lobbying? How does it work? Are you working with politicians?
Yeah, you definitely have to sue the commune. The commune or the so-called Landkreis is responsible for social welfare payments. And yeah, that takes quite a very long time. I mean, in Berlin, it takes forever. Yeah. There you have like a waiting time of nearly 3 years now. In other communities, it's different. Sometimes it's faster, but yeah, because you have to sue the commune. Also, the companies are trying to solve the problem on other levels, and we're also trying to get in contact with the commune and to somehow find a solution with politicians, but also with the commune as well, with the responsible people, in order to get payments started, because I mean they all want good care services, so they have to pay for, and the companies they cannot say, oh, we're not taking care of you because there's no payment yet. I mean, they legally have the right to, but I don't know a company who's doing that, who's who's stopping services because those people are just in need of. So and there we're communicating a lot to answer your second question. So we're getting in touch not only with the communes but with politicians, especially on state level, in order to find out where like changes in law or in regulations need to be made to get those services leveled, like on both sides, to get a good partnership, basically.
Awesome. Hey, Lucas, I have a question there before you. Is this legal stuff, is it going to be on a communal level or is it going to be on national level? The politicians and all that stuff.
Yeah, so care services are regulated on state level, but the communes, they have the right to interfere in the structure, like what kind of companies are offering services in their state, also, and what kind of services. So they also have the right to support companies, especially the welfare care services. So we have different kinds of services, welfare care service, but also private care service and state care service. Yeah. Although the state care service is only a very small amount of nearly 2% Germany-wide, so it's very low. Most of the care services are private care services for the services offering care at home, which is like 68%. And then for the stationary services, it's 43%. So many companies are private companies offering care services, and therefore it's very important for them. I mean, they are investing, so they want a return.
Infrastructure. Building infrastructure, and then if they don't get paid, it's a pretty bad situation. Talk about infrastructure. We talk now the problems about the regulatory part, but now the other problem is probably also how to get the nurses, right? Because if you have so more remote demand, I think that's the next topic we would love to cover, because in the end, it's like, yes, we want to talk first about the problems before we can actually talk about also the bright side, right? Because there's always like the darkest before the dawn. And so, let's talk about also the immigration of potential foreign nurses.
Yeah, there's actually quite a high level of foreign nurses in Germany, and that sector is growing. So back in 2016, when everything really started, because non-EU countries have opened to somehow get some or export nurses, I would say, to Germany. Services have started to recruit those nurses from other countries that are non-EU. So up to 2015, 2016, many companies have focused on recruiting nurses from EU countries. And then it kind of exploded from around 86,000 in 2016 and 17 up to nearly 300,000 now.
A year? 300,000 nurses.
Yeah, which is a lot. I mean, working here. So per
total,
year,
not per year.
Per year it's growing as well. So it has started with 2,000, 2,500 back in.
I was like 300,000 per year. I was like, how many nurses do we need? How many burn out? I was like, man, like 300,000. And if the average is growing, like, what are they doing? Like, which sector do they work?
Back in 2016, it was around 2,500, 3,000 from non-EU countries. And it has grown up to 35,000 now per year. So it's growing fast as well.
Wow. Yeah. Do you think so this is because of government change? A regulation, like making it easier for getting a visa and stuff like this?
Definitely. We were fighting for that as well because the process was very complicated, and we were fighting to ease that process and also to make it less bureaucratic and lower the burden and lower regulations for people come to Germany working as a nurse. But the companies are in need because we don't have enough young people who can fill the vacant positions. So we have a high average age of nurses, which is now 51.
This number is insane.
Many nurses who will leave the sector in the next years. Usually, so our retirement age is like 67, but many are not or cannot do the job up to 67.
Also, if you think about it, like that's the average. That means for every nurse that is 41, there's a nurse that is 62. Also, you mentioned on another meeting that 4 years ago, the average was it was 47. So basically, the average is going up rapidly. So
fast.
If you mentioned that that so many new nurses are coming in, like 35,000 of like foreign countries, how is it that the average is actually increasing that much? Are they going to different nursing, like not to home care? Where are they normally being hired that the average is still increasing so much?
I think without those nurses, the average would have increased much faster, I would say.
Okay. How can it be faster than the year? You know what I mean? It's like not a year, but just like now it's
because we had so many baby boomers back in the end of the 60s, so 67, 68 were the baby boomer years, and they are now at the age where they will retire, and then we had a fast not so many people who were born basically. And that's, where also other branches, other sectors are wanting those young people. And although we have a high number of people getting trained and educated and becoming a nurse, we have like 61,000 people a year who are trained to becoming a nurse.
Which is a lot.
Which is a lot, but it's not enough.
Can you give some context? How many nurses are in total?
So in total, we have 1.7 million nurses in the long-term care sector, also growing. But because of so many people in need of care, they are growing faster than the people who can be trained to becoming a nurse. And it's a challenging job. I mean, you have shifts, you have weekend work. You're probably not at home at Christmas because you have to work on those holidays, and it's quite tough. I mean,
for sure.
People, need to want that kind of work, and because there's such a high focus on travel work or homework, working from home. It's quite difficult for those traditional jobs, like with shifts and with being at work every day, nearly 24/7. They have quite high, let's say, they are struggling finding young people who are interested, for example, and therefore we're also very thankful that people from abroad are coming to get trained here as well.
My question
is, be trained here, or they just be trained
exactly there? That's my question. Also, does the number count in the 35,000 that coming in right now? Are they part of the 60,000, or are they on top of the 60-something thousand that are trained?
Perfect.
So it's like 90-something thousand.
Right. They're usually trained when they are coming here. So they are not included in the statistics. There are different statistics for the recruitment of the fully qualified nurses, which include those 35,000. And then there's an extra, and this is still a low number. It's below 1,000 people who are coming for a training.
Okay. What's the average age of the people coming from outside the EU, or the 35,000? What's the average age there? So just to know, because like if 60,000 people are trained in Germany, finish each year, and then 35,000, which is 95,000, so almost 100K.
35,000 per year, or is it in total? Per year. Okay.
Per year now.
And then I mean that would be only 100,000 out of the 1.7 million. So that's actually. It sounds
it's not that bad.
It sounds actually quite good, but still the average is increasing. Average age, which is like for me like really mind-blowing number, because like are the people then quitting early, or are they leaving? They're going to, instead of home care, they're going into elderly care, or like how's the statistic, or is it all counted as the same?
Well, I think there are some facts because we have a high number of women working as a nurse. So it's like 85% of women in total. And if they're like young, at a certain point, they're starting to become a mom. And then they stay away from the job, so they have parental leave for around like 12 months, which is very usual. And we also have people, let's say, long-term sick. So the leave days because of sickness is quite high. It's one of the highest compared to like other economic
how much is levels. It? How many days is it? And compared to the average, just so that the audience will understand, we're talking about serious numbers here.
Right. The average currently is like 35 days, sick leave days a year, and it's the average. And we have also
that's 7 weeks.
Nurses. We also have nurses that are sick for months because all those Corona. Corona has left a big impact, or has made a big impact, and some of them have long COVID, for example, because they got exposed for such a long time, but also those let's say burnout sickness is quite common in the nurses sector, and
also they're not the youngest anymore.
Like
if the average is 51.
But also young people, they tend not to work full time, so they only are employed part time. So we have a high number of part time nurses, which is like 65%. And
really?
This is quite high. Yeah. And that's why you also need more people to cover the jobs and to cover the caregiving services.
Would they be considered then also as, are they then hired as external providers, like as Selbstständige, as independent providers?
No, usually they are employed. Yeah, fully employed. Yeah. So this is just a very, very, very low number.
I have a question again about this Immigration Act for Skilled Workers, or Fachkräfteeinwanderung that we're talking about right now. So what are exactly the legal structures that are helping these foreign nurses or skilled workers come into the country? And what's the process like?
Right. I'm very happy that we have a so-called speed process by now to get the nurses. Yeah, because it gives just like a reliable time frame for the nurses coming to Germany, because it's regulated in law, like what kind of authority needs to do what and what kind of a time frame, and that helped a lot to somehow regulate that process. But before, we had very long processes where nurses needed to wait many months, or also. So the average was. So now it can be up to 6 weeks, which is quite fast to come to Germany. If you start the so-called speed process, where you have to pay extra, but I think the extra fee is worth it. It's 411 euros, which is fine if you have like a reliable time frame. Also,
are there loans? Also, because I can imagine 411 euros doesn't sound a lot for Europeans or maybe North Americans. But if you're then like from like let's say an African country, this might be a yearly salary. Are there like loans where they basically give it provided for them?
Yes, I mean, some companies, they offer to pay that amount fully without any like reimbursement from the nurse, because they know that usually the nurses are coming from countries where the income is not that high. So, and this is also like one part of the recruitment process where we say, okay, this is something that the WHO is recommending and the ILO is recommending, and we also have a certification process for recruitment companies. Where they get certified, and this is part of it, that the company, like the employer, will pay all fees.
I'm seeing like just now in the home care sector or nurses in general?
Nurses in general, not only home care, And that's quite a detailed process. So at least you have to speak German at a B2 level.
B2, which is, that's a lot. So like
this
B2
is a high level. Yeah, to get recognized as a qualified nurse. So you can come in with B1, but at least you have to have B1 to apply for visa. And then you have to apply for the recognition process as well. And you have to apply to the employment service agency. And then you can come to Germany, and that takes at least 6 weeks for the speed process. But if you don't use it, it differs between several months. So usually it's regulated that it should not exceed 4 months, but in many states in Germany,
it's
the government.
That's
again.
What we always know. It's like, roughly it will take this much time, and then it takes much longer.
Sure.
How does this compare to other countries?
Is it good? Is it bad? Are we good?
I mean, the process is, I would say, quite good if it would work in every state, and if all authorities would rely on the process and also would not ask for like extra documents or so. So they are also allowed to ask for extra documents, and that takes, I think, the extra time.
Which states are the bad ones? We want to know. Give us the gossip.
So many companies are complaining about Baden-Württemberg because they are not centralized, and it's very difficult. They don't have enough staff at the authorities to really hold on to those 4 months process time. But they're also like very good states. For example, Bavaria, they have digitalized the whole process. You can also pay online your fee, which is quite good, because like
online.
Other.
You can pay online now.
Weird.
Wow, welcome to 2025. You don't have to fax it in, so that's already an advantage.
Right, it sounds very weird. It happens, or it had happened in 2023. So, but
2 years.
it's definitely the only state where you can pay online, and
what about
where you can hand in everything online. So usually you can only ask for the permission online, and you have to hand in all the documents by post.
Which is crazy, especially if you're from like say you're from Africa and you have to send it in. That takes another few weeks minimum.
Also, I don't trust the postal service. This stuff gets always
really
lost
crazy,
somehow.
Right?
I mean,
sometimes you can upload it online, but you have to send it as well with a postal office.
So for me, it's still crazy. But for me, it's still crazy that you have it. Each state has a different one. That they don't have one. Like, okay, this works great in Bavaria, and then we apply it for everything. Because in the end, it's like we're the same country, and then each state is still doing it differently, which makes it for me.
It's not like the US where the states are so much different. Right?
And it also, also the nurses, they don't really understand why in some states it's like this, and other states it's different. And it also kind of, the nurses, they get frustrated basically.
For sure.
Because it's so different. And other countries are making it better because other countries have ease in the process. We're fighting for a so-called one-click system or one-click process, where you just like, as a nurse, you just have one website where you upload everything you need for recognition and for working in Germany, and then everything else will be solved with that software, and with the authorities will start working when you have put a send, which would make it so much easier because now it's a very big process also for the employers in other countries like Canada, but also like Australia. Sounds weird, but they've done so much to ease the processes, and they also give bonuses for people. Yeah, especially Canada is offering high bonuses for nurses coming to the country, but also US.
How far away are we from the one-click application?
Oh, very far. We're very far away. I mean, it's one of my goals that will happen in the next few years, but I think it will take up to 20 years or something.
Isabell has on her vision board. Like
yeah.
But not for next year, 10 years.
Yeah, I hope not.
Maybe they wake up and they're like, oh yeah, now we're having everything digitalized, the trains are on time, everything will be perfect. Well, no.
Yeah, and I mean, you can also use artificial intelligence in order to compare all the documents, whether they can be recognized, whether they are trustful or original documents or not. I mean, you don't have to sit there in person and then look at the paper.
Just thinking about this, that people are still doing them manually. I think this is also now, I want to talk about also the bright side, because intelligent AI, before we get there, hold it there. I still question, once I apply to, let's say, Bavaria, because come on, let's say I'm digital, I know that Bavaria is the good one. Once I apply, can I then move wherever I want in Germany, or do I have to work in Bavaria?
Yeah, that's the other point. You have to work in Bavaria because all the permission is only valid for Bavaria, which is crazy.
Damn.
Because if you want to move, or if you're moving, especially for the companies that have services around Germany and want to employ the nurse somewhere else because there's a shortage of staff, etc., it's very complicated, and they have to apply again if they move states, which is really crazy because you've done the process once, you have your recognition, you have all the permissions. So why is it not possible to move from one state to another, although you're still working in Germany? You're staying there. I mean, this is really crazy, and it's also something that we're aiming for.
Let's go.
Lucas, you go.
All right.
Sorry, I had to
now
ask
we talked about all the challenges, but as we already mentioned, the AI. So this is also I guess I see the light now. I see the light at the end of the tunnel. I would like to talk more about this, how certain processes could be optimized with AI, or things that are still not digitalized, which can speed up the entire process. I think that's a good topic I would love to cover now as well.
I can try to give some insights. I mean,
please, that would be fantastic.
I'm working at the association, and probably nurses can give you so much more ideas where I could help. Definitely it could help using it for documentation, because this is one of the biggest parts and one of the biggest tasks, or time-wise. It takes up to 40% of a daily routine to document everything. And documentation, most of the time, is still manually. So the people are writing down everything, and then they double it to typing it into the computer. But I could help so much more. I mean, you can do, you could ease in the process and get some extra time for the nurses, because they are complaining about so many tasks that are not, or they don't refer to the actual caregiving tasks.
I mean, who wouldn't? I mean, to be honest, if I worked all day, helping elderly people get into bed, change the wound, clean the wounds, etc., and then I go home just to stand in front of my computer, sit on the computer. German might not be my first language, probably not, and then I have to fill out a document for a few hours. I would be burned out too from that. I mean, that's totally understandable, especially nowadays when there are other solutions.
Right, definitely. And it could also help to steer the care processes better. I mean, if you fill in all the numbers, all the vital signs, etc., it can also foresight, for example, things like, if you also include medication, then it can foresight, for example, a fall of the people, or it can also foresight, let's say if you put in all the vital signs, then it can help ease your, for example, medication, so that it could give you a hint of changing medication, for example, if you add a new medicine, and usually services, they don't have it. They don't use software or any kind of services like that. It can also help if people will fall during night, if they fall out of bed. It can also give alarm, for example, to nurses. Therefore, you probably have to use a special floor, etc., where guests connected to emergency call for care services. This is something that some companies are using, but very rarely, because there's like no financial support for investment, and only if you have enough financial background, I would say, if you have enough financial if you have enough money and enough financial support, then you can use those systems.
So basically, the problem is the technology exists, but the government is not financially supporting it. For example, as you mentioned,
payers, Lucas, let's say all the payers.
Long-term care insurance is not paying for that, although it can help, it can prevent, it can support.
So this might be, for example, ambient trackers. So, for example, you would place not cameras, but they're just sensors, and maybe in the bathroom, like underneath the toilet seat, so you know when people sit there. Then it could, for example, the eye track in general, what's the routine of a person. All the elderly people have normally the same routine. Once you checked it, it can say, okay, Kevin needs 30 minutes in the bathroom. If he takes more, if it's just an hour in the bathroom, that might be the case. Or if the coffee machine is not, the fridge is not opened, etc. These are things, because like, yes, an Apple Watch, etc., all these falling things are really nice, but in the end, if people don't put it on, they don't help. The best tracking device don't help if you have to actively use them. So these things are there, but they're not supported yet. And I guess the future or the light might be once they get integrated into insurance companies. So my point is, that means these service providers or these producers need to negotiate with, for example, these insurance companies to get it integrated into these plans, which then reduce the costs, right? Because in the end, they would have to pay less, the insurance companies later.
Sure, especially like if people are being taken care of at their own homes, so much happens, and also so many things cause injuries. Like if they fall or if they dehydrate, then this causes the ambulance to come.
Dehydration is a big thing?
Yeah, it's definitely a big thing. Not only during very hot summer days, but also 365 days a year, because for example, if you have dementia, then you just cannot remember when you have sipped water the last time. So it's very important that you have, for example, a system or somehow a remembrance system that gives you just a hint to sip some water and drink some water
to
not dehydrate.
Vibrating.
Yeah, I mean, this is. If you dehydrate, this definitely causes a lot of injuries. People get dizzy, people fall,
which is so simple.
Yeah,
if you think about it,
I mean, if you're not being taken care of 24/7, because when you're at home, usually the home care service only comes. It depends between 1 to 4 times a day. That depends on your care level. And if that person comes only 1 time a day, then you might lay there for many, many hours until someone will come and find you. And this is, very crucial. It's only my opinion, but to use those software, to use the technique, just to help prevent people or to prevent situations like that.
Have you ever thought about it? Because this reminded me of an idea that we were thinking about eventually, at some point, like a reminder for elderly people, like on a phone call, basically, that AI calls them like, look, hey, Isabell, please don't forget to take your medicine. And did you drink enough water already or not? This is just an automated reminder. Thank you. And then just ends the call. So basically it just calls it and reminds it. Is there a service like that already? Do you think this has a future? Because you said people just forget water or medicine. And like you said, someone might come later, etc. But till then, they don't drink.
There are services like that, but you have to pay extra. And not many people are willing to pay extra. So
do you know how much it is, roughly, for these reminders?
I don't know exactly, no.
Also, it's hard. If you have anyways not everything covered, you have like you're paying for the basics, and then somebody's telling you, hey, we have a service that reminds you to drink water. And they're like, drink water? Why would I need a reminder? Even though it's technically probably one of the best things for making sure that they don't get any injuries. But this is not what people see. They see like...
Right.
So we gotta talk to the insurance
many elderly
companies.
people, they just forget to drink enough, although they need at least 2 liters a day. They, especially if they take medication, they just forgot to drink
2 liters.
they don't move. They don't move that much anymore, so they think they don't have to drink that much. They don't need that, but it's very important. I'm not sure whether a phone call would help, because if you have dementia, you probably forget where you put the phone. So something like a speaker, like, it sounds weird, but an Alexa who will speak with you, or another would
directly
help.
straight into the
go drink water.
Right.
I'm still full.
Yeah, for example, that might help. I mean, if you want that people will stay at home a longer time. And,
I think our grandma used to drink only a liter. Yeah, I'm just thinking about it. I was like, I think our grandma also was struggling, and she barely had drank like a liter, because she was just like,
oh wow, that's difficult.
Yeah, it's
just
we
always had a reminder when we were at the dinner table. She's like, we were like, drink, gotta drink this now. She's
drink that glass, and she's like, forcing it down.
Yeah, it's so important also for like the blood flowing around, like
also
in
for
your
my
body.
brain functionality. Like, I mean, for me, if I don't drink water, I get like drowsy. I'm not full of energy.
Right.
So that's but we're still young, so it's like a huge difference, because you don't, also probably as elderly people, you don't want to go to the bathroom. It's like sitting down might not be the easiest thing anymore, and you're like, oh, it's a pain. Same as like getting up at night to go to the bathroom. I can imagine it. I have no experience yet, but like I can imagine that's also some of these things
You're already an old person. You go to the washroom twice in the night. You're already old.
But I drink also my. That's true. I kind of am.
I'll be honest with you.
But it probably also depends like what you've drunk at night or
I mean, I
in
drink
the
like
evening.
between 4 and 5 liters, so I'm like
then you have to go
well hydrated.
It's quite good.
Isabell, we mentioned already a lot of stakeholders, and it's a very complicated industry. So how do you, first of all, who are all the stakeholders in this industry? And how do you manage like policies and stakeholder management? How do you do that? Like, what do you do on a daily basis? And how does that impact also the industry? Could you give us a little bit broad overview of the stakeholders, etc.?
Yeah, I mean, there are many stakeholders. If you're a caregiving service, then you especially have to have a relationship with the care insurances, because you have to negotiate prices individually, which takes quite a long time. And then you also have the state. But the insurance services, just to add that, they also give you the contracts to offer services. So you have to, they will check whether you have fulfilled all the requirements that are needed to operate a service, a caregiving service, which also differs from state to state.
What are these requirements?
So that depends. Like if you have a stationary home, so you have to at least have 50% of your staff. You have to have qualified nurses, and then 50% will be unqualified or assistant nurses. Which changes now, because we have now some regulations where you can go down. It depends on your staff mix, on your the mix of qualifications of people that you employ giving services. You also have to have a good management, like a so-called Pflegedienstleitung for stationary homes. So a nurse who is in charge of the caregiving services. For home care services, it's quite less. So you have to have between 1 or 2 qualified nurses, and then a not named number. It depends on you how many unqualified nurses. So there need to be 1 qualified nurse who is in charge of operation, and then 1 qualified nurse who is steering all the processes as well, and who will be able to drive to the homes, and also to support the unqualified nurses who are doing basic care services.
Please correct me here. So you mentioned to become a qualified nurse, if you're from the non-EU countries, or let's say non-Germany, you need to speak B1 or B2 to be qualified. Otherwise, you can be a normal nurse, but you cannot be a qualified nurse. Did I understand it correctly?
Yeah, you have to come to Germany with a B1 level, but for the full recognition of a
B2.
qualified nurse, you have to have a B2 level. Yeah.
Okay, so basically it's not about their skills of actually being a nurse. You
qualify as minimum. Not only, Lucas, minimum, both.
You know, exactly. But I'm assuming that, especially when we have 36,000 or 35,000 people each year coming from German-speaking countries, that the biggest qualification issue is the German level to become a qualified nurse. Then actually,
also your qualifications will be verified. So they will check with the German qualification system whether your theoretical and practical qualifications are equal. If they are not, then it's so-called, they say, a Defizitbescheid. So they will document your deficits. And then you have to do like an additional training or go to school and then make an exam, for example.
Have you ever seen any services that are providing like German classes? They're like, look, well, you know what? I have these. I know some people that in the foreign countries that are nurses want to come here, or they're like B1. You know, like she's working with us, or he's working with us. She's a B1. I'm gonna get him to a B2, and they have like German classes.
Yeah, they do have German classes in Germany as well. So we also have a cooperation with the Goethe-Institut. They have 12 institutes here in Germany, but also like online courses are very common. Yeah, also some like specialized courses for healthcare language, I would say, for special language that you need for care services are offered.
Who's testing the B levels?
There are only 3 institutes who are allowed for testing or where the exams are recognized. And this is Goethe-Institut. It's the second one is TELC, and the third one is ÖSG, TELC, which is the Austrian language company.
Never heard of TELC.
You never know?
TELC is quite broad.
Yeah, big
around the world.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
It's a big company offering services like language services.
The European language certificates. Yes, sorry, I've never heard the way TELC. Yeah. Okay. Yes, I have.
I'm pretty sure. I'm like this.
The European English certificate, European language certificate. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. But you also asked to come back to your stakeholder questions. We have the communities, like I said, where they steer what kind of services are or can be offered in the communes in the states. You have the ministries who are regulating the education and training for the nurses in each state. And then you have basically governmental regulations. For example, what kind of services you need to supply for the different care levels. This is regulated on state level. And also what will be reimbursed for the different care levels. This is also statewide regulated.
I think you mentioned in another call with us already that on the state level, there's also already these collective agreements, but they're not on every state.
You're right.
So that's wild to me. Like, so why is it only some states again and some others don't?
Yeah, because they can choose how they are bargaining prices for care services, and some states are, I would say, smart because there's the collective regulation for prices. It just makes the bargaining easier and also the regulation faster. Probably not all companies agree with the prices, but you're still able to negotiate separately if you have higher costs, for example.
That gives them more flexibility for sure. Is there, in general, more of a unionization happening, or is there no unions in that regard?
There are unions, but the level is quite low. So only
surprising in Germany.
Yeah, in other sectors it's higher, but in the care sector there are only like 3% who are engaged in the union. So 3% of the employees who are engaged in at a union. But since 2022, I think, 2022, we have a forced regulation which forces the companies to pay union wages, although you're not organized in a union. So they have a very for the employees, it's a good regulation, but for the companies, it's very strict regulation to pay union wages, so collective bargaining wages. And that has caused, it has caused a high rise for wages. So up to 45% in some parts of Germany.
In what time frame?
Past 5 years.
Wow,
and this is a higher rise compared to all other sectors. It has never happened before.
Which is good, though. I mean, there's a lot of people that are in need, and it's one of these, I'm going to say, basic things that we need.
Definitely. I mean, wages are now very good, and also the employees, the nurses, they don't complain about their wages anymore. So we have an average wage for long-term sector, which is around 3,830 euros. So it's not that bad. Plus additional benefits on top.
This is one of the things I'm a little bit I'm not sure what to think about, because I think it's great that they earn more, but at the same time, if the government doesn't pay more the home care service providers, because if they're still stuck with the, let's say reimbursement, they just like squeeze these companies, especially the private ones, because they have to pay still certain amount of taxes. They're just not considered, they just have to pay normal taxes on their profits, etc. Whereas then the government-owned parts, because they're also like governmental organizations who do home care, they don't have to pay this amount of tax or no tax at all, which is like, for me, I like that they earn more, but at the same time, you're seeing that the reimbursement structure stayed the same. So the only thing that happens, the margins of these companies is getting lower.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, because there's a part, like I said, where prices are only paid partly by the insurance companies. The care receiving people, they have to pay extra as well, and this part just rises every year, I would say. So it's now up to, like I said, it's up to 2,800 euros if you're living in a stationary home, which is quite high. And I think we just need to find somehow a solution how to stop that, like the system, because the system of the spiral going up all year, because the caregiving services are not changing. So you're not able to ask for more services because you're paying more. You still have the same service amount and the same nurses coming to you giving those services. It's just
more expensive.
It's like the insurance is not paying more, and there we say it's somehow, or it's at some point it might turn that people are choosing wisely what kind of services they want to or not. They are choosing the services they are able to pay for and not what they need. So and this can be difficult.
Now, looking at the future outlook, because I think it's really important to see it. I mean, it's always darkest before the dawn, but for example, as we mentioned, the margins getting lower, the reimbursements are relatively low, because we're seeing a market that's very, very fragmented. So like these home care providers are very, very fragmented. I think I've here the statistics open from Statistik-Bundesamt. And for example, for the listeners, in 2009, there were roughly 12,000 only home care providers. Well, it's a lot already, but like in 2023 was 15,500. Same with like in-home care. So like where people live, there's like 11,600 in 2009 and 16,500 in 2023. These numbers are increasing, and at the same time, we're seeing more and more consolidation happening. So, for example, now consolidation can be very good because it also helps them to lobby, like to get better deals or get more reimbursement. The average, like for example, mom and pop stores, just like a family having a home care business, they will not have the capacity, nor do they even want to think about these things, because they're just like they have enough
surviving.
Patience. Exactly, they're surviving, and like they don't want to because they're just like a very small part in a big machine. And once you see more consolidation, because for example, I think 2019 the top 15 home care providers had like less than 2% of the market share, and now I think it's like almost 7 or 8%. I think it was 7, something like 7, which is like, you see there's already consolidation happening over the last 5 years. And this is going more and more to the direction, which then also helps them to put more pressure on those insurances. So
that's another question. Well, on the insurance, Lucas, how much, Isabell, do you know how much the profit margin is for them? Because they probably have an excuse, right? Why they don't want to pay. What are they saying, and what the actual numbers say? Do you have any insights on that?
The government as well. The government insurances also have profits. Like, because then, like, if I think about it, the government shouldn't really make that much profit. Like, no.
I don't know about the government, but I mean, if they are not paying on time, it just feels like the companies who are providing the services are more like a bank, because they're giving services without being paid for, or being paid for
without interest.
Right. So this is quite difficult though for the companies, and the profit margin has been reduced, or has reduced in the past years significantly, especially for the private care providers. And that's why I think the consolidation process is rising as well. I mean, if there were many, or are still many, family-owned businesses in the care sector, many small companies as well, many small private but also welfare companies offering care services, and they still don't have the financial support system and the financial structure to gap those dates between sending out the bill and then get the reimbursement. So this is definitely a problem. And there were profit margins 10 years ago around like 10-12%, but it went down to 3 to 5%.
Really?
Which is, that is crazy low.
In long term, in residences or home care?
Especially in residences, but also home care services, they've lost a lot and it went down a lot. So, which is nearly the same. So, in the home care services, it depends like how big you are. If you're bigger, then your profit margin is also higher, because you have more efficient processes, etc. And there you can still have between 6 to 7% profit margin before tax.
Of course, tax always, and then
and taxes are quite high in Germany.
What would you think is now the positive outlook? Because we've been painting, of course, the problems, because I think it's really important to showcase what are the problems and what potentially can solve these problems. But like, what is also the positive outlook? Because like, I don't want to
opportunities.
Exactly, opportunities. Because like, and I think like this is really, really important to see, like, yes, this is all what's going wrong, but also what are opportunities, where can people like innovate and stuff. I think that's really, really cool as well.
I mean, the care sector is still a very stable sector. It's a growing sector, still growing sector. And I think this will stay, because it will stay like that, because we have so many elderly people who will be in need of care, and this number is growing as well. And many of the regulations, although there are so many, have changed to a positive way. Also, there were some eases in bureaucracy, and this is where I hope the next government will also look afterwards to reduce bureaucratical burdens for the companies, but also to allow them and to support investments. So, for example, to lower taxes, and this is what we're aiming for, and I hope this will happen, because also other economic sectors are putting pressure to the government. The taxes are way too high, and if we want companies to invest, because we need additional infrastructure, then we also need to give them good opportunities and a good low tax, for example.
Let's hope for the best. Let's hope,
and also to support. And we hope also that the process of for foreign nurses to come to Germany will be easier as well in the future. So
we're seeing a trend that it is
process.
I think that's also like the positive. Exactly like an Amazon, just buy, click, and and deliver the next day.
Yeah.
I think that's but we're seeing already a good trajectory, of which I think is like very good if you look. I think you said at the beginning was like 2,000 that people came. Now it's already 35,000, which is like already a great sign that we're going in the right direction. Of course, now it's about accelerating this. And yeah, let's. I'm sure this will be great.
Isabell, do you have any final thoughts that you want to share with the listeners, or something that where they can follow whatever
what I should check out?
Yes.
Sure. I mean, the focus probably for like the German government should be more on the companies who are providing the services, and not only on the insurance who's paying for the services, because there isn't a good partnership anymore. And they are the companies who are investing, the companies who are providing the services. If you don't support them, they will withdraw from the market. And I think this will be a very bad sign. We're not every old people has a family around who can take care of them. So I think we're definitely in need in a good healthcare system, and also in a good elderly care system.
Awesome. That was a good finish. Isabell, we highly appreciate you coming on. We highly appreciate it.
Thank you so much.